You're listening to Cinema Red Pill. I'm Sharon.
And I'm Timothy.
It's just the two of us today, and we're going to discuss the film Bobi Wine, the People's President, which recently just got nominated for an Academy Award in the category of Best Documentary Feature Film. So congrats to the filmmakers.
Yep, congrats.
Yeah, as a film podcast from Uganda.
Yeah.
It don't make sense for us to not talk about this doc.
It's good to actually talk about a Ugandan film that's Oscar nominated. We used to do the Oscar episodes and stuff. So
So this is our Oscar episode.
Yeah,
just talking about the one film that has been nominated. But I don't know why it doesn't feel so celebratory. Like I don't feel the hype.
It hasn't been celebrated as much in Uganda, apart from a few circles, I'm sure, where probably Bobi Wine supporters, I would say, but it hasn't been as widely celebrated, shockingly.
It's like you usually know that something is going far when like ordinary people talk about it in a way, like asking about the film. The same way like I feel Lukman broke through as a filmmaker is when other people start asking about him, something like that. I just haven't felt that way about this doc and its success.
I mean, also I think it's maybe because it's a documentary, which is also like a genre which people, unless they watch National Geographic or maybe they exclusively look for documentaries, they may not see. And again, maybe it talks about the detachment people have from the Oscars as like an award, like people who really follow it, but then there are people who also, some people think it's like that award with like the boring movies for old people. Like some people are really into the cinema blockbuster thing. So I mean, if it was a film that grossed like 500 million around the world, probably people would pay more attention to it. But again, it is what it is.
Yeah, maybe for what the film it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, congrats to the film and to the filmmakers. I think we want to talk about the filmmakers, specifically the Ugandan filmmaker. So the film follows Bobi Wine and his journey towards becoming a candidate for presidency. What year was it? 2021?
2021.
It follows him prior, like his campaign and towards the 2021 elections that last happened here. And during that time, there was COVID outbreak. We were in lockdown for a lot of weeks.
There are two different lockdowns that we had.
So it goes into that and shows the election and his journey, which is something we all lived.
If you're in Uganda around that time, you definitely saw this on the news every day, on social media.
We'll get into that after, but let's first get into the filmmakers. So there are two people who are credited as directors. One of them is Moses Boyle, and the other is Christopher Sharp. Christopher Sharp is either British or American. Let me check.
Actually, interestingly, I think he's British. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe he's American.
Born in Uganda.
Yes, he was born and he grew up in Uganda also.
Yes.
Probably earlier days, is a bit older. So.
Yeah, but he has done a lot of work in London.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that on Wikipedia they credit it as Ugandan British American documentary film. Like Jesus. I think there's an American producer. Yes. One of the main producers is American, one of the co-directors is British and born in Uganda. Then Boyle is Ugandan and currently based in LA. So anyway, like most people who are in the film industry in Uganda know of Boyle and knew about him before this. He was known as a producer?
No, he was...
And director?
Yes, he did do that.
He started a production house.
Yeah, he did. But then I think he was mainly known for his work as a sound recordist, sound editor.
Okay.
That was like his main forte, because I think he really grew to prominence when he worked on Queen of Katwe.
Yes.
In 2016, Miran Nair's film. Again, also Boyo, just a bit more background to him. Also, of course, as you said, he's well known in the film industry. He had gone through Kampala Film School and also taught there. I actually studied under him one semester, learning sound, and also the Maisha Film Labs. He was also very involved in that scene of filmmaking here in Uganda. So, eventually I think he decided to pick up a camera and start following Bobi Wine around and it led to this.
Yeah. This is his first credited film.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a short even. This is his
debut
film.
His own, because I think he has worked on many films, but in other capacities.
Yes. And a thing that was known about Boyo is around the time that they were making the doc, he was in the middle of one of the moments when they attacked Bobi.
Yes.
Because his camera got damaged.
Yes.
And he was injured as well. He had to go to hospital.
Yes.
And after that, he left the country.
Yes. I mean, it's all documented also in the film, just like how intense. I think he followed
but they don't get into Moses' life.
Yes, his life, yes. Yeah. But I think because he followed him throughout, like, the period leading to elections. And during that period, I think if you could see what happened in the film and how perhaps there were a lot of brushes with the law, he was always dead center of, like, all those clashes between Bobi Wine and the police. So eventually, yes, of course, knowing how at the time he got into that situation, eventually he had to leave the country because, yes, he was not feeling safe, apparently. So that's apparently.
And apparently he was
he was not feeling safe. No, I don't speak for him, but yes, he has said he did not feel safe, so he had to leave.
Okay.
So,
Great. So the film was being made. I think a bunch of people knew it was being made, and then it had a premiere at Venice. I remember that was significant because there was some chaos about where Bobi Wine is and him leaving the country, and then he's like, I'm going to premiere the film.
Yes.
It had a film premiere at Venice and has shown at other festivals, and it's been received so well.
Yes.
Like, if you follow, like, a couple of critics who, one of the people we've had a guest on, Wilfred Okichi, like, because he attends a bunch of festivals and he would always point it out as one of the films from Africa that's standing out for people.
Yeah.
So it's really been a success in the festivals out there. Yeah. And then it got released on YouTube. The entire thing is on YouTube. It's about an hour and 54 minutes, which I'm really happy for. Like, access.
Access, yes.
Access is everything. So really happy about that. I just feel like it's not a big deal. Like, I thought it's, and which I understand, but I felt it would be a bigger deal. I thought it would at least even have a premiere here. Maybe they would be squeezed for that. Or maybe he has shown it and we just don't know.
He actually did organize a premiere at his offices for his party, which I was happy that they actually let happen in the Nope offices, and there was like a bunch of other musicians, and it was a public screening where I think he invited a lot of other people to see it communally. So I think at least they've done that, but again, as we say, that maybe it's because this is a lot of what's in the film is stuff that was in the news 24/7 around that time. So for a lot of Ugandans, this is not really like perhaps a documentary that gives them a lot of new information, whereas I imagine for people out there who perhaps were not like aware of the politics of Uganda and the character of Bobi Wine, for them it's such a revelation for them, and that's why it gets all this. Because again, seeing his story, people know it. He was a musician, came from relative poverty, and he worked his way up as a young man to become a very successful musician. Then he eventually turned his career to going back to school and becoming a politician, becoming a member of parliament, until he actually raised himself to the profile of actually being someone who could challenge President Museveni in Uganda. So again, I do get why it's very inspirational, especially for people outside of Uganda, but for people in Uganda who are very aware of Bobi Wine's story and have followed him in the news and social media, know what's happening. The documentary perhaps did give them too much new information that would like really like maybe even make the documentary like really stand out also here in Uganda. So
let's really get into that, because that's exactly how I felt. Like once I watched it, I'm like, okay, we lived through all this, all the clips, even like it almost was like this is a collection of everything we were seeing already. I didn't feel like there was any new footage really. I think his entire endeavor throughout 2021 was so highly recorded, and we all had access to those things. So even I think for me, I was shocked by some things they left out in his story. That's what, so my whole mind was like, really? They chose not to do something? There's some things that really shocked me, which I felt for me, as an observer of Bobi Wine, were monumental for me. I think one of the big ones for me was the image of him in a fighting position in Parliament. I feel like that's such a big part of his story, and they never brought it up.
That whole campaign where he basically became leader of
opposition.
It's
what led him to this. Like, for me, that was such... That's when he garnered so much attention. That's when he garnered my attention. So it utterly shocked me that was completely left out of that doc. That was big. I think I was also quite shocked that the film is too heavy on just him. I thought I wanted more context. I wished for the people even who don't know to really have a lot more context. I think more context would be nice to be added to. I wish there was also more talking heads. I don't know why they chose not to have more than just him and Barbie.
Maybe it was also like a production issue because again, as we said, like again, they're not here, and again also the security situation for some people just actually getting involved in a documentary like this. So like I do see your what you mean, though. Again, the film maybe it's supposed to be more like a portrait of just
him and Bobby
his life, which was again that was maybe some of the more interesting stuff I saw. Just like the family stuff, him at home because that's I've seen a lot of the political stuff, but I haven't, apart from a few clips here or there where you see him with his family. I'd never really like gotten into that kind of stuff. So maybe Bobi Wine, the family man, kind of showing him, that's the thing. Because again, also people have this very weird image of Bobi Wine in Uganda. Some quarters, because of his past as a musician. And of course, at the time, recreational use of certain substances.
Weed.
That sometimes used to discredit him as he's not worthy of being president. But again, kind of seeing him as a family man and very responsible and successful. Maybe those are some things that kind of debunk those things about him. But as you said, like a lot of it we had already seen.
We knew.
It had been replayed multiple times on TV. So it was there was a lot of stuff we had already seen basically. So I imagine that was maybe an issue. But for the people out there who also need to know about the situation and like get to know about Bobi Wine, it works. It also works.
I think the talking head things even stood out for me when there's a moment when they talk to his best friend, the musician, I've forgotten his name.
Nubian Lee.
Yes, when they talk, like I was happy to just even hear his perspective. And there's a moment when Besige's voice is heard, like they use a voiceover of him, and I got so excited. I'm like, oh my god, is Besige actually going to be one of the talking heads? So it made me now wish that Besige was one of the talking heads, because he's really important when it comes to the struggle of people who are fighting against the current government.
And he definitely gives a bit more context also for the struggle outside of Bobi Wine.
Definitely. My major thing that I felt really was missing, I wished it had just even like 10 minutes dedicated to that. So many people died in November on that riot, from the riot. Like that November riot was crazy.
One of the deadliest, I think.
Deadly. So many people died. I wish they paid more attention to that. It was so tragic. And I just felt they passed through it a bit too quick. There's a moment when they show a bunch of pictures, but that for me wasn't enough. I wished for more of that. I wished for more of
what happened on the day itself.
That day itself, the number, and all the people that died. And then I kept remembering the fact that the current government was unremorseful about those killings, and it was even known that they had managed to target people who they say were the ones causing the chaos. Then they said there were mistakes. And the thing that kills me about those mistakes is they paid the families like 5M. Imagine. Like that is what they saw as what someone's life.
And for context, I don't know if people may not know the value of 5 million Uganda shillings. It's like very little.
It's very little money.
It's probably like how much? It's less than, I don't know, I'd have to do the math, but it's probably like just over $500 or $1,000.
It's
$1,200 maybe.
1,000 and some. It was so tragic, and I didn't feel that from it. So that I wished for more. That would be the main thing for me. But otherwise, it's really well made, and a good doc. I think it reminded me a lot of Softy. Because like when watching Softy, I didn't know about I need to get his name.
Boniface Mwangi.
Yes. So I didn't know about Boniface's life and just everything that had happened. So I was it was people like me were the target for Softy because we didn't live through it. But here, when you have been there the entire time, it's such a different thing to consume. Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, oh shit, like. Yeah,
it was crazy.
What other docs have I watched where there's so much more context that I just don't know? Yeah. It's a fascinating thing to see.
Yeah.
Do you think it will win?
I mean, it's in the other film I've seen that it's because this the Bobi Wine documentary, because it did very well at Venice and was picked up, but it also did win the best documentary feature at the International Documentary Film Awards. So even in the arena of documentary for the year, it has already got the top prize, and I think it's definitely a front runner at the Oscars. But in this category, there's other film called 20 Days in Mariupol, which is about the conflict in Ukraine. So I'm like, it's, of course, Ukraine is a very current zeitgeist situation thing, and whereas Bobi Wine's this election was a few years ago, though it's still a very relevant story. But I feel it's one of the two. I'm really rooting for the Bobi Wine documentary and Bayo to win, of course. I want our own to win. But I would say if there's any competition in that group, it's that Ukrainian documentary. But hopefully they win. I'm riding for them.
I'm rooting for them as well.
We'll see how it pans out. But I mean, it's just good to see Ugandan films going out there and also being recognized, Ugandan stories being recognized on an international stage like the Oscars. And I think also this has been very uplifting for filmmakers in Uganda to see one of their own, someone who is not far removed from them, like lived like them. They have probably worked with this Moses Bayo, and then they actually see someone go and win and get nominated for an Oscar and all these big awards. So outside of telling the story, it's also just inspirational for the Ugandan film scene and filmmakers to know that yes, if they actually are telling stories that have a lot of meaning, yes, their work will definitely get some traction out there. So
true. I think though it has to be acknowledged really that there is some distance to it. Like Moses is there, but every other name that is credited for production and stuff is a white name. So it has a lot of white backing. So there's a way you can feel distance on the achievability. If it was very heavily produced by Ugandans, I think there would be a lot more feeling and a lot more collective joy amongst.
No, because again, I feel also, as you said, it's probably very. Because of course the film started in Uganda with Bayo working as a solo individual, and sometimes after you have collected all this footage, a lot of times you look for backers, people to help fund the process, because again a lot of times people here in Uganda, we work with very small budgets, and sometimes that compromises the quality of the final product. So I do see how there's that distance between, but I imagine if for any film, I think, from Uganda to be able to make it to the Oscars, it has to first of all appeal in many ways to the festival circuit. It has to be able to show in Venice and Cannes and Sundance, these kinds of festivals that kind of churn all the films that go to these big award ceremonies. So I guess because his film definitely has the appeal for a market like that. That's probably the reason why maybe it has gone so far, probably more than other Ugandan films. But again, that's again a thing. Maybe that's people can learn from the way he moved in trying to get the financing, and even getting the film into these spaces, festivals and stuff, also helps a lot because it also opens doors for a lot of people, because you may win all the Uganda Film Festival awards and you'll be very big here in Uganda, but then even in Uganda, the market, people may not see your film as much. It may be within a very small community, and then if it also it's not seen out there, then it won't get as much traction. So you I think people just need to find the balance of they can make their films homemade and with homegrown talent, but then they have to also figure out the politics of the film festival circuit and what these festivals want and how you can make perhaps films that kind of can get to that circuit, and eventually it also opens doors to make other things, because there are plenty of filmmakers, especially West Africa, all that, who kind of understood this formula, and it has helped them make other films because they're able to secure funding and all that. So I guess I know it can be a double-edged sword where people are like, people are like, oh, it's not a Ugandan film because it's all Western backed and all that.
It but comes off that way.
But then like, I mean, it's a film about Ugandan people, about say Ugandan story, and people, real Ugandans also suffered immensely to make this film, with people having to leave the country and all that. And so like, I mean, people shouldn't knock it, even if they don't are not supporters of Bobi Wine, but like, I think it's an achievement because it's basically, I think, the first Oscar nominated Ugandan. That's already like a record he has set, and everyone else who comes after him will have to know he was the first, and it's something to be celebrated.
Which has reminded me, a Ugandan won an Emmy. That guy who works with Trevor Noah.
Yes, yeah. Actually, there are two of them. There's one that Joseph Opio, and there's another guy. Is it Chibuka? I did know there were two. So I knew of Joseph Opio.
It was so sweet. I was so happy. One thing that I didn't mention that I want to say before we close, because we had already finished discussing that film, but the images shown of Kamwacha. He's the ghetto president. And there's scenes that they show, like, of the ghettos and stuff. How did you feel about that? For me, I was like, okay, fine. Sometimes it came off a bit porny for me, like a bit poverty porny. But then I just wished, one thing I wished that they would have acknowledged is, or like, visually, just going from there, because they start there and finish there. But that's not where he is now. And I'm like, moving from the ghetto, and then he has this humongous house. I just really wish that was acknowledged more.
No, they show the house quite a bit as well.
I don't know, like, I don't know.
No, but I think, and that's another thing people bring towards Bobi Wine, as maybe like they see it as a contradiction with him. But I mean, like, he's someone who I think everything he has like had to work really hard for. I mean, he really did come from the ghetto, from Kamwacha, and then he was, say, as a musician, and of course, the scene of musicians also can also have he was in his scandals at the time, fights and all that, and he has been able to kind of build himself up, and I think it's a good thing that people like Bobi Wine are there, because they actually give other people in the ghetto like the hope that they can also actually make it out and become people of influence. And again, showing the ghetto, I think it's fine, because that's truly his base, his power base in Uganda, because again, we know a lot of say middle to upper class Ugandans sometimes also look down on him because of his background.
They go on and on about how he's public speaking.
He's not presidential material.
Really piss me off,
maybe there's that thing. So I mean, it's that's really his base. Like, of course, the people in the ghetto really do love him, and they really do see him as an inspiration. And I think even if he's not there, I mean, like, I'm sure, like, he's not someone who completely forgot the ghetto. Otherwise, they wouldn't love him. I imagine he has like small initiatives he has done. He was an MP for, I think, was it that same area? He was the MP there as well. So, I mean, there are those. He's no longer in the ghetto. He's clearly done very well for himself. He's now rolling in very different circles. But I think it was important to show that his power base in Uganda, the people who support him the most, are the poorest, the most disenfranchised Ugandans. Those are the people who really look up to him, because they can in a way relate to him and where he came from and perhaps where they want to go. So I think it's just a symbol of maybe hope for people like that. But again, I do get how people can say, if you're the ghetto president, ghetto savior, and you're now flying off to all these award shows, in New York, you're in summits, and there's that detachment you have from the ghetto. But I think he still represents.
I think he does. I'm thinking of it like as I don't know what I'm asking. Because I don't think that way. I just thought visually. Or like, I don't know. Like, the shift from the ghetto to the mansion, I feel wasn't explained enough. That's how I would say.
Okay, maybe
I feel it wasn't explained
maybe
enough.
they'll give more context for how successful he has been as a musician. Acknowledge
the way there. I wish they gave us a through line.
Yes, a through line of his beginning young Bobi,
and how he's here.
Not just.
I even think like that's even more inspiring than presenting the two images and not really acknowledging it.
I get that. No, they could have been, and I imagine there's maybe like an issue of like even that footage you're talking about, like the killings that happened in Kampala. Like I also imagine there was a lot of stuff that maybe they wanted to get from like media houses and stuff that they could have incorporated. I don't know if Bobi Wine maybe has his own archive of like his life and all that, but who knows, maybe it was just hard to secure some of this footage from like and you can't really like piece all that together. And sometimes the film, you may not have everything, you may find why you wanted more, but sometimes you just have to work with what you have. But I do see what you mean. There could have been just a bit more context for his rise from the ghetto to this position he's in now.
True.
Because he didn't just like parachute into the lead of.
Okay, I get that. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think, I mean, I don't know if it's necessary to point this out, but I did write an article on another film being made by another Ugandan, Patience Nitumwesiga, and her film is called The Woman Who Poked the Leopard, and it's actually going to be on Dr. Stella Nyanzi, who's also another political activist in Uganda, who also has experienced similar brushes with the law as Bobi Wine, and is also living
spent a year
in prison, and she's now basically also living in asylum in Europe. So the film is also being made on her and her basically her life. I mean, also it might also focus a bit more on her away from like the stuff we've seen on TV. It might be a bit more personal, but it's interesting that there are filmmakers who are trying to document these very, I think, interesting characters in Uganda's scene. Like, you have to keep them because these people are, in many ways, people may agree with them or not agree with them, but they stand for something, and a lot of them are trying to drive change in different ways. So it's just good to document them and see how the story ends eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah, this has been it. Kept it brief. Yeah. Given some context.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck to the film at the Oscars.
Good luck at the Oscars.
In March? Feb?
Yeah, I think this month, sometime later this month.
Feb, I think it's later this month. Good luck to the film. Hope it wins. Hope it will win for Bobi and for Eugene.
Yes.
And for Moses.
And for Moses,
I wonder if
and for Ugandan film, I guess.
That's really cool. That has been our episode. Thank you for listening. I'm Sharon.
I'm Timothy.
Bye.
People make films about themselves, what they want, what they love, what they fear most. Here we're nothing but props and their stories.